Right now, underneath the car in your driveway, in a place you have never once looked, there is water sitting against bare steel. It has been there since the last rain. It will still be there tomorrow. And every day it sits, it is turning a car that runs fine into a car that gets scrapped. Not the engine, the body, the floor, the brake lines. That is what sends a running vehicle to the crusher in this country, and it begins in the same 6 places on every car ever built. In 1965, a mechanic in a 2-bay station knew those 6 places by heart. He could walk up to a car in a lot, put his hand on the rocker panel, and tell you what that car would look like after 4 winters. He did not sell you a rust repair. He stopped one with a garden hose, a piece of wire, and 10 minutes. There was no money in it. That was the whole point. Rust was not a repair back then. It was something you prevented, the way you prevented a fire. Then the body shop learned what rust was worth. A rocker panel replaced today runs $200 a side. A brake line that fails inspection runs $600. A perforated floor pan will total a vehicle with 200,000 good miles left in the motor. Rust became the most profitable thing that can happen to a car that is otherwise perfectly sound, and the men who knew how to stop it for nothing stopped being asked. Number 19 is 15 minutes with a fingernail and a bottle of touch-up paint, and it is the whole difference between a chip and a hole. Number 10 is the single most expensive mistake a well-meaning owner makes, and half of you watching have already paid somebody to do it to your car. And number 1 is free, takes 4 minutes, and it is the reason his customers still had their rockers when every other car in that town was lace. These 25 tricks were never about a hose and a rag. They were about a man who understood that rust is not fate, it is slow chemistry, and slow chemistry can be beaten by anybody willing to look. Let us count down the 25 forgotten rust tricks 1965 mechanics knew before body shops made rust profitable. Number 25, clearing the door drain holes. Every door on your car is a bucket. Water runs down inside the glass every time it rains and is supposed to leave through slots along the bottom edge. Pack those slots with dirt and the door holds water against bare steel all winter. You run a piece of wire or a zip tie through each slot until it comes out clean. A station man in 1965 did this twice a year on every car he touched and never charged for it. Doors do not rust from the rain. They rust from the water that could not get out. Number 24, clearing the rocker drains. The rocker panel is the box under your doors, and it has drain holes on the underside for the same reason the door does. Road spray goes in. It is supposed to come out. You get on the ground, find each hole, and poke it clear. A northern mechanic in 1965 did this every fall before the first salt truck ran. The rocker did not fill because it was weak. It filled because nobody opened the door for the water to leave. Number 23, cleaning the cowl at the base of the windshield. That grill below your wiper arms takes in air, and it takes in leaves with it. Packed full, it holds a wet mat of debris against the bulkhead and floods your footwell. You lift the wiper cowl trim in the spring and pull the leaves out by hand. A garage man in 1965 cleared them every time he did an oil change. It was not the windshield seal that soaked the carpet. It was a gutter nobody had swept. Number 22, blowing out the drain tubes. Sunroofs, and on many cars, the rear pillars run rubber tubes down inside the body to carry water out at the bottom. Blocked, they dump that water into the headliner and down inside the rocker. You pour a little water into the corner channel and watch for it to run out under the car. If it does not, low-pressure air or a soft trimmer line clears it. It was never the glass that leaked. It was the pipe underneath it. Number 21, pulling the mats and drying the carpet. A rubber mat holds a puddle of snow melt against the carpet, and the carpet holds it against the floor pan, and the floor pan rusts from the inside out, where you will never see it until your foot goes through. You pull the mats every few weeks in winter and let the carpet dry. A man in 1965 hung his mats on the fence to drip. The floor did not rot from below. It rotted from your boots. Number 20, Dig in the mud out of the wheel wells, behind the plastic liner and up in the top of the arch. Wet dirt packs into a ledge and sits there for years, wicking salt against the metal. You pull a few clips, reach in, and scrape it out. A station owner in 1965 hosed out every wheel well he could reach in March. The wheel arch is the first place a car goes. It is also the easiest place to save. Number 19. Touching up a stone chip the week you find it. A chip on the hood edge or the rocker is a hole in the paint, and paint is the only thing between the steel and the weather. You clean the chip, dab primer with a toothpick, then color, then a drop of clear. 15 minutes and a $12 bottle. A careful owner in 1965 walked the front of his car every spring with a bottle in his pocket. A chip is a dab of paint. A chip ignored is a panel. Number 18. Waxing before winter, not after. Wax and sealant are barriers, and the barrier has to be on the paint before the salt arrives, not in April when the damage is done. You wash the car in late October and put a good coat on everything, then a second coat on the lower panels that catch the spray. A man in 1965 waxed his car the week the leaves turned. Everybody waxes for the car show. He waxed for February. Number 17. Washing the underside on a thaw day. Salt does nothing while it is dry and frozen. It goes to work the moment it dissolves. So, you wash on the first day the temperature climbs above freezing and you pay for the underbody spray, or you run a lawn sprinkler under the car for 10 minutes. A northern driver in 1965 washed after every thaw all winter long. The salt does not eat the car in the storm. It eats it on the warm day after. Here is something nobody is counting. The men who learned this trade in a service bay in the 1960s, who fought rust in towns where the road salt went down by the ton, are nearly all gone. The youngest are past 80. They did not keep this in a manual. They kept it in their hands in 30 years of lying on cold concrete under other people's cars, learning exactly where the water hides. The chain ran from one man to the next apprentice for 50 years, and then the stations closed and the chain stopped. The hose is still on the wall. The wire is still in the drawer. What went into the ground with them was knowing where to point them. If any of this is landing, hit that like button and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell while you are there. It costs you nothing, and it is the only reason a video like this reaches the next man who needs it. Number 16. Not washing when it is below freezing. The same wash that saves a car in March will hurt it in January. Water gets into the drains you just cleared, freezes and blocks them solid, and it freezes your door seals and tears them when you pull the handle. You wait for the thaw. A mechanic in 1965 would send a man home rather than wash a car at 20 degrees. The wash is not the enemy. The ice you sealed inside it is. Number 15. Drying the jambs, sills, and hinges. After any wash, water stands in the door sill, the hinge pockets, and along the bottom of the trunk opening, and those edges are where the paint is thinnest and the seams overlap. You open every door and the trunk and wipe them dry with a towel. A station attendant in 1965 did this on every car that came off his wash rack. The paint on the outside is the part you see. The seam in the jamb is the part that goes. Number 14. Emptying the spare tire well. The lowest point inside your trunk is under the spare, and a bad taillight gasket or a tired trunk seal fills it with water you will never notice until the smell starts. You lift the spare twice a year and put your hand in the well. A used car man in 1965 checked that well on every trade-in he took because a wet well meant a rotten floor. The trunk did not leak all at once. It filled a spoonful at a time. Number 13. Reading the seam sealer. Look along the floor pan, the trunk floor, and the inner fenders, and you will see beads of sealer over every joint. When that sealer cracks or lifts, water gets behind it and rusts the seam from within. You do not paint over a cracked bead. You cut it out, clean the metal, and lay new seam sealer. A body man in 1965 checked the seams before he ever checked the paint. Rust does not start on the surface, it starts in the joint. Number 12. Putting the body plugs back. Your floor and rockers have rubber plugs in factory holes. When one falls out, that hole becomes a scoop for road spray at 60 miles an hour. You crawl under, count them, and replace the missing ones for $1 apiece. A shopman in 1965 kept a coffee can of plugs on the bench for exactly this. It was not a hole in the floor. It was an open window on the highway. Number 11. Anti-seize on steel into aluminum. Two different metals, bolted together and left damp, corrode each other and weld themselves solid. Months later, the bolt tears the soft threads out on removal. You wipe a light coat of anti-seize on the bolt before it goes into any aluminum housing, bracket, or manifold. A mechanic in 1965 kept a brush of it at his elbow. It was not the bolt that ruined the part. It was the dry steel grown into the soft metal. Number 10. Never undercoating over rust or wet steel. This is the expensive one. Rubberized undercoating sprayed over dirt, moisture, or existing rust seals the water in and hides the damage while it spreads underneath. When it finally lifts, the panel behind it is gone. If you coat, the metal is cleaned to bright first, and it is bone dry. A shop in 1965 would refuse the job on a dirty car. Undercoating does not stop rust, it only decides whether you can see it. Number 9. Cavity wax inside the rockers and doors. The factory can only reach so far. The inside of a rocker, a door skin, and a frame rail is bare steel that rusts outward, which is why a panel looks fine one spring and is perforated the next. You use the factory access holes and a wand to fog a lanolin or wax-based cavity coating into each one. It creeps into the seams. A rust-proofer in 1965 did every new car this way. The outside is what you wash. The inside is what actually kills it. There is a reason nobody teaches you this anymore. Walk into a body shop and ask what rust work costs. Rocker panels, quarter panel patches, floor pans, cab corners, and a paint blend on top. That is a $3,000 to $6,000 job on a car worth $8,000, which is exactly why the insurer writes it off instead. Corrosion does billions of dollars in damage to American vehicles every year, and almost none of it is covered by anything. Now consider that every trick on this list costs under $30 and takes a Saturday morning. Nobody makes a payroll telling you that. The craft was not lost. It was made unprofitable, and then it was allowed to die. Do me one favor before we get to the top 8. Tap that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so the next one comes to you. That is the whole price of this. Number 8. Bright metal, primer, same day. Bare steel begins to flash rust within hours, sometimes minutes in humidity. If you wire brush or sand a spot back to shining metal and leave it until next weekend, you have accomplished nothing. You wipe it with a wax and grease remover, and you prime it before you put the tools away. A body man in 1965 would not start a repair he could not seal. It was not the sanding that saved the panel. It was what happened in the next 10 minutes. Number 7. Phosphoric acid where you cannot reach bare metal. In a seam or a pit you cannot get a wheel into, a phosphoric acid rust converter chemically turns the red oxide into a stable black coating. It buys you real time, but it is not a finish. You neutralize it, dry it, and seal it with primer and paint, or it will start again underneath. A rebuilder in 1965 used the acid and then always covered his work. The acid stopped the rust. The seal is what kept it stopped. Number 6. Keeping the battery tray dry and coated. A vented battery breathes acid mist, and that mist eats the tray, the hold down, and eventually the fender it is bolted to. You clean the tray, neutralize the white crust with baking soda and water, dry it, and coat the bare metal with paint or grease. A station man in 1965 did every tray he serviced. It was never the battery that rotted the fender. It was the acid nobody sealed away. Number 5. Looking at the brake and fuel lines. This is the one that is not about resale value. Steel brake lines run the length of the car in the spray, and a rusted line lets go under hard braking with no warning at all. You get a light on them and look for flaking, swelling, or scale. If you see it, you have them replaced, and you do it now. A mechanic in 1965 checked lines before he checked anything else. Every other item on this list costs you money. This one costs you people. Number 4. Not shutting a wet, salty car in a warm garage. A frozen car barely rusts at all. Put that same car in a heated garage, and the salt goes back into solution and works all night at room temperature. Either rinse the underside before you put it away, or leave the car outside, or crack the garage door so it dries instead of steaming. A man in 1965 with a dirt floor garage understood this without being told. Warm and wet is not shelter. It is an incubator. Number 3. Knowing the map. You do not look everywhere. You look where it always begins. The rocker panels, the rear wheel arch lips, the bottom of every door, the seams where 2 panels meet, the trunk and hood lip, and the floor above the sills. Those 6 places trap salt and water on every vehicle ever built. He could teach a customer that map in 2 minutes, and after that, the man could check his own car. Rust is not random. It starts in the same places on every car. Number 2. The 5-minute walk after every thaw. Once a week in winter, you take a flashlight and walk the map. A look at the arch lips, a finger in the door drains, a glance at the sills. It is not a repair. It is an appointment with the metal. A garage man in 1965 did this to his own car every Sunday and told his customers those 5 minutes were worth more than any bodywork he could sell them afterward. The body shop fixes rust after it has won. He beat it every week before it started. Number 1. Getting underneath it. That is all. 4 minutes, once a month, on your back with a flashlight, looking at the part of your car you have never looked at. Because rust does not begin where you can see it. It begins on the underside of the floor, in the frame rails, on the lines, in the wheel arches, and by the time it shows up on the outside of a fender, it has been working for 3 years. Nobody looks under a car. That is the entire reason rust wins. Your grandfather did this without calling it anything. He called it getting under it. Number 1 is not a trick. It is the look that makes all 24 of the others possible. None of these needed a certification, a coating package, or a $200 service. They needed a hose, a piece of wire, a light, and a man who believed that rust was not fate, but a slow chemistry a patient man could stop. That belief was the default setting in every service bay in America. Not confidence born from training. Confidence born from being under enough cars to see where the water goes. If this was worth your time, do the 3 things that keep it alive. Like it, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Then tell me in the comments what state you are in, how old your car is, and whether your door drains were clear or packed solid when you checked them. I read every one of these. We did not lose the hose. It is still on the wall. We lost the man in the gray uniform who cleared your door drains without being asked, who told you to wash on the warm day and not the cold one, who put his hand on your rocker panel and said, "There, that is where it will start." He is gone now, and most of what he knew went with him. But not all of it, because some of it is in this video, written down at last. So the next time you see a blister in the paint, do not call a body shop and do not drive past it again. Get a light, get on the ground, and go look at where the water is sitting. The craft is not dead. It is 4 minutes and a willing pair of knees away.